Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles. I had always thought I knew who my family was. My wife Susan and I had built a life together, 17 years of marriage. 2 kids and a house full of memories. I had never imagined that the same people I trusted most would one day betray me in such a brutal way. It started small. At first, little things I brushed off as nothing. The odd phone call that ended the second I walked into the room. The strange giggles I heard from Susan's side of the house when she thought I wasn't listening. And when she'd be on the phone whispering, her voice dropping to a pitch that made the hairs on my neck stand up. She'd quickly hang up when I walked past the door. But it wasn't until the absences started piling up that I began to wonder Susan would tell me she was working late or going to visit a friend. But it didn't take long before those excuses began to feel thin. She'd return home with that same smile, that fake brightness she wore like a mask, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. One day I asked her, "Susan, where were you tonight? You said you were at Lisa's, but I called her and she said you weren't there." She froze for just a moment before answering, her words coming out too quickly. "Oh, I want to grab a coffee, got distracted. I wanted to believe her, I really did." But there was something in her eyes, some subtle shift that I couldn't ignore. And then came the most bizarre detail of all. Marcus, my younger brother, the golden boy, the one who could do no wrong, the one everyone loved and admired always, the charmer, always the one who knew just what to say. I hadn't thought about it much until that night at dinner. The moment I brought up his name, the entire room seemed to change. Susan's face went stiff, her eyes darting toward the kids like she was looking for a way to escape the conversation. "Marcus is coming over tomorrow," I said. Casually, "He's bringing his girlfriend? I thought we could all hang out?" Susan didn't look up from her plate. I'm not sure I'm feeling up to it," she said, her voice unusually flat. "Why?" I asked. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, I'm a little tired." She didn't meet my eyes. I sat back trying to process what was happening. It felt wrong, like something was lurking beneath the surface, but I pushed it out of my mind. I told myself it was just stress. Maybe she was going through something. Didn't understand. But everything changed. The day I found the message, it was a Sunday afternoon. The kids were outside, and I was cleaning up the kitchen. I grabbed her phone, intending to send a quick text to her mother. Susan was in the other room, lost in a book or maybe something on her tablet. I didn't think much of it, but when I unlocked her phone, a notification popped up from a messaging app. One didn't recognize the name, was just a string of numbers. I hesitated for a moment, my finger hovering over the message preview. My heart hammered in my chest as I opened it. The words on the screen were enough to make my stomach churn. "I miss you last night. Was amazing. I can't wait to see you again. I felt the blood drain from my face. Marcus. My brother." I stood frozen for a long moment, the phone slipping from my hand, forgotten on the table. My mind raced, heart pounding in my ears. Could it be true? Was I really reading this? Was this real? I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. My world felt like it was crumbling. In an instant, I waited for her to come into the room, but she didn't. My legs moved before my brain could catch up, carrying me down the hall to the bedroom. I opened the door slowly, the air in the room heavy, with the weight of what I already knew, but I wasn't ready to see. And there they were, Susan and Marcus. Together, the betrayal so deep and unimaginable hit me like a freight train. The room spun, my thoughts fractured into a million pieces. I wanted to shout, to scream, to make them feel the devastation they had just inflicted on me, but I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just stood there, broken. For the next few weeks, I became someone else. I wasn't Keith anymore. I was a man on a mission. I was a ghost in my own home, watching, listening, tracking every move she made. I stopped sleeping because every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. With him. I saw Marcus's face, his smug grin. I could feel their betrayal, even in my dreams. I cloned her WhatsApp, web and installed software on the family computer to capture every temporary file. It wasn't hard. It felt like I had been given permission to dig through her life, to pry open every door she had locked. Shut. I planted a hidden microphone in the study, the one she used to work in during the afternoons when I thought she was just getting some quiet time. I needed to hear everything, every whisper, every secret, every conversation. And I found what I was looking for. The messages were sickening, explicit, like something out of a cheap motel encounter. I read through them, my hands shaking, the words almost jumping off the screen at me. There were plans, casual references to meetings. She and Marcus had meeting places. Times one message casually mentioned how much she missed him while I thought she was at the grocery store. Another detailed plans to meet while I was out with the kids. She didn't even try to hide it. She didn't care anymore. The voice notes were even worse. They spoke to each other with such familiarity, such intimacy. It was like they had been doing this forever. There was nothing innocent in their words, nothing casual, just a raw, primal connection that I could never have imagined between them. And the worst part, I was oblivious for years. I was the fool. They were playing me, mocking me, and I never saw it. It was all there in black and white, in the cold, hard evidence. Every message, every voice note, every moment they shared while I lived my life, thinking everything was fine. I could unsee it. I couldn't unknow it. The truth had cut me deeper than I could have ever imagined. I could feel the knife twisting inside me, and with each new message I uncovered each new piece of the puzzle. The wound deepened. It was the betrayal that got to me, not just the sex, not the lies. It was how they talked about me, how easily they mocked me, how casual the cruelty was. It felt like I was just some character in their twisted little story, a piece of scenery to move around. When it suited them, one message stood out, a sick joke my brother made about me. I remember reading it, my heart pounding in my chest like I could feel the words physically striking me. I don't get how he hasn't figured it out. He's completely oblivious. And then her reply. He's so trusting. Sometimes I just want to tell him, just to watch that perfect husband face crumble. The words sliced through me. That was when the heartbreak stopped feeling like something soft, something I could still hold on to. It became something colder, something sharper, something that hardened me, made me want to reach into the world and grab it by the throat. I'd been their fool, their joke, the perfect husband, the clueless man. And that's when I knew it wasn't enough to just feel hurt. I wasn't going to sit here and take this. They weren't going to get away with this. They needed to know the price of their actions. I wasn't looking for revenge. I didn't want to destroy them, but I didn't want justice. I wanted them to feel what I was feeling, to know the weight of the betrayal they thought they could just laugh off. I remembered something my father used to tell me when I was younger. Betrayal is not something you forgive. If someone spits in your face, you don't offer a smile. You return the blow, and you make sure they feel it. And that's exactly what I was going to do. I didn't make a rash decision. No, this wasn't about losing control, about a snap of anger. This was calculated, methodical. I needed them to understand the weight of their actions, to see the man they had broken, to understand that I wasn't the fool they thought I was. I was going to bring it all crashing down. I planned it for days, a family dinner. I didn't want to just pull the rug out from under them in private, hidden in the shadows of a conversation. No, I needed an audience. I needed everyone to see what they had done. I sent out the invitations, my parents, my kids, the aunties who never knew when to stay out of other people's business, the cousins who live for gossip. Everyone would be there. And of course, Susan and Marcus. The stars of this sick little drama. I told them it was a chance to rebuild the family, a way to ease the tension that had supposedly been weighing on us lately, Susan. She bit at the bait immediately, smiling and agreeing without a second thought. Ever the queen of hypocrisy, she couldn't even see it coming. The innocence in her eyes, the way she wrapped herself in charm like a blanket, was almost laughable. Marcus, well, he was thrilled. No surprise there. He loved being the center of attention. I could almost see the smug look on his face as he thought he was going to get some recognition. Maybe a round of applause for his role in this twisted play. No one suspected a thing. I played the role to perfection. Bought wine, made dinner with the kids. Set the table like it was some kind of celebration. But every step I took, every word I spoke was calculated, every action wrapped in a mask of warmth. Behind it all, there was a cold, cold precision at work. The plan was simple. They were going to see the truth. No more hiding. No more lies. I printed everything, the screenshots, the photos, the messages I compiled, the audios, every voice note that had come through, and I put them all into one file. The file was hooked up to a speaker ready to play. I crafted a timeline of events tracking each meeting, each lie, each betrayal. Every encounter they thought was safe was now ready to be laid bare. Everything was ready that night. Wasn't going to be some family gathering. It was going to be an execution swift, public and merciless after everything they'd done to me. I had nothing left to lose. The only thing I had left was the truth, and I was going to lay it out piece by piece in front of everyone who needed to hear it. The setup was perfect for what would become the most messed up dinner of my life. I can still close my eyes and replay every second of that night with chilling clarity, the shift in the atmosphere, the exact moment when the laughter died one by one, their faces turned pale. It wasn't subtle. It was immediate. That's when they realized this wasn't some heartfelt dinner to bring everyone together. No, this was the night. Everything they thought was safe, familiar, and hidden would burn to the ground. And the sickest part, I orchestrated it all with a level of precision. I didn't even know I had it. Felt like I was a surgeon, knowing exactly where to cut which nerves to strike and how far I could go before it all collapsed. I knew how to make them feel it. Every word, every moment was carefully timed. It started like any other family dinner. Susan was flitting around the kitchen in that red dress, the one she used to wear when she wanted me to compliment her, when she wanted to remind me of how we once were. It's funny how the details stick, how a single piece of clothing can capture everything that's been lost. She was checking the table, rearranging things, like it was all part of a grand performance, that fake-ass smile plastered on her face like a mask she'd worn for years. My mother showed up with one of her god-awful desserts, the kind that nobody actually likes, but everyone pretends to because it's tradition, the kind of dessert you eat out of obligation rather than desire. My father took his usual seat at the head of the table, acting like the moral authority of the family, like he was still the patriarch, still the man who knew right from wrong. The kids were just happy to see the family together, oblivious to the tension that had been building. They laughed and asked for seconds. The sound of their joy made everything feel so much worse, but they were innocent and they didn't deserve to be tangled up in this mess. And then there was him, Marcus, my brother, the bastard. He sat there drinking beer, laughing with that smug smile of his. Just like nothing had happened. He looked at me like we were two brothers having a good time, sharing a meal. Like we hadn't been living in the same house, like he hadn't been screwing my wife while my kids slept down the hall. The first 40 minutes felt like a war inside me, but to everyone else it was just another family dinner. The sound of their voices, my mother complaining about the unbearable heat, my father chiming in about politics, and Susan laughing at some joke my brother made. It all felt so distant, so fake, so wrong. I barely spoke. I nodded, poured wine, made sure everyone was comfortable. I knew I couldn't rush it. If I moved too fast, I'd ruin everything I had to let them relax, settle into the routine of the evening so that when the truth hit them, it would land harder. I couldn't give them any reason to suspect that anything was wrong. I needed them to feel at ease, to let down their guard, to think that everything was normal. So when I pulled the rug out from under them, when dinner finally ended, and I started collecting the plates, it felt almost surreal. The sounds of the evening, the clinking of silverware, the hum of conversation were all still lingering in the air. But they didn't matter anymore. The stage was set, and it was time to pull the curtain back. I reached for the microphone, the one we usually use to play music. During family dinners, the one that had always been a harmless part of the routine, but tonight it was going to serve a very different purpose. I connected it to my phone, let the volume rise just enough to make sure everyone could hear, and then I pressed play. It started with a single audio. My brother's voice came through loud and clear. His words, low, breathy, and almost too intimate. He was laughing, panting, saying he couldn't wait to see her in the black lace lingerie he had bought for her. The conversation that followed was raw, graphic, so vulgar it felt like a slap to the face. One of my aunts, the one who never misses a chance to gossip, dropped her glass. Her eyes wide, she muttered under her breath, "This has to be a joke." Duh. But it wasn't. It wasn't a joke. It was everything they'd done behind my back, everything they thought would stay hidden coming to light. I watched the room change the moment when the shock hit their faces, went from relaxed to a mixture of disbelief and horror. It was like I could see the exact moment. Their world shattered, my wife's face drained of color, her lips parted in silent horror. She looked like she might collapse, but she stood rooted to the spot. My brother, though he couldn't even look up, he just dropped his gaze, silent, like something had been torn away from him. And then I spoke, not with anger, not with shouting. I wasn't going to let them see me lose control. I was disturbingly calm, and the calmness made it worse. It made everything so much more terrifying for them. I've been collecting evidence for months. I said, my voice steady. I've listened to every recording I've read, every message, seen every photo. My wife's eyes flicked toward me, but she couldn't even react. She knew it was true. How long has this been going on? I asked. How long did you think I wouldn't notice? I told them how she pretended to be sick to sneak off to a roadside motel with him, how she made up fake work meetings while I stayed home, taking care of the kids, and even on Christmas Day, Christmas of all days, while I was outside grilling with her father, she was texting him from the bathroom, "I love you." I let the words hang in the air. My mother broke down, sobbing, her shoulders shaking. I could hear my father's breath coming quicker, like he was struggling to keep his composure. He stood up slowly, his voice trembling with a quiet fury, and looked at my brother. No, not just my brother, but a man who had once been my closest friend. You're a disgrace to this family. He spat in all my worst moments. I never saw something so vile. The silence that followed felt like it was pressing in on me. It wasn't just the shock or the pain of hearing the truth spoken out loud. It was the realization that this was real. They had all been living in this lie, and now it was all coming apart. My kids didn't understand everything. They were still too young to grasp the full scope of what was happening. But they knew something serious was unfolding. My oldest, just 14, looked at me with eyes full of tears, his voice small and broken. Did she really do that? And I couldn't even answer. I couldn't find the words, not for him. I just nodded, the lump in my throat growing so thick that I thought I might choke. That was when she tried to get up, my wife, desperate to speak, to defend herself, to deny everything. But I wasn't giving her that chance. I slammed a folder down onto the table, thick with the printed screenshots, the evidence. I threw them out one by one like a dealer at a poker table, each one landing with a heavy slap against the surface. Do you want me to lie? I asked, the words coming out slow and deliberate. Do you still want to pretend this didn't happen? I leaned forward, meeting her gaze. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to hide. I looked her straight in the eyes and delivered the line I had been rehearsing for weeks, the one I had never wanted to say, but knew I had to. What hurts the most isn't that you betrayed me, it's that you let our children grow up thinking this was love. The room fell silent. Some cried, some looked away, not knowing where to fix their eyes. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel relieved. I just felt the raw emptiness of finally facing what had been eating at me for months, years even, and I kept going. I don't know how to explain it. I said, my voice quieter now, though still steady, waking up next to her, knowing she wasn't really there. Not for me, not for us. I looked around the room, their faces a mixture of guilt and confusion. I saw my mother, trembling, her eyes wide as if she still couldn't comprehend the depth of what I just revealed. And this isn't about revenge. I continued, almost with a touch of finality in my voice. It's not about destroying anything. It's about truth. About peeling off the masks this family's been wearing for too long. I can't keep playing along with this lie. The silence stretched on, stretching every second longer than the last, until finally one of my teenage nephews stood up. His face was pale, his eyes wide with anger and disbelief. He looked at me with a kind of fury only youth can carry, and in that moment I saw the damage I'd caused, the fallout of my actions. I would have killed that bastard if he was my brother. You are weak, he spat, before storming out of the room, slamming the door behind him so hard I felt the vibrations in my bones. I didn't react. I couldn't not, when there was so much more to unravel, and not when the anger that burned inside me had already exhausted itself. My brother opened his mouth, probably to say something, to apologize, to explain, to deny, but my father cut him off. "You've done enough damage already," my father shouted, his voice shaking with emotion. Just shut up." Well, I looked at my brother. Then he had no words. He just stared back at me, unable to meet my eyes. The weight of everything I'd said pressing down on him and my wife. She just sat there frozen. The tears slid down her cheeks in a way that made it feel like she was only just beginning to understand the magnitude of the hell she'd created. The world she thought she could control, the lies she thought would stay hidden, had all collapsed in front of her for a moment. I thought she might say something, might try to apologize, but I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want her to defend herself anymore. Not after everything. I stood up, suddenly feeling like all the air had been sucked out of the room. I walked over to the stereo and turned off the music. The room felt colder now, emptier, like a space too hollow for any of us to fill. "Thank you for coming," I said, my voice colder than I intended. "You can leave whenever you like." I didn't need to say anything else. I had said all I needed to say, and that was the end of it. 2 weeks later, and I can still feel the echoes of that night, hanging in the air, not like memories, but like ghosts that refused to leave. I thought that by finally letting everything out, by dragging the truth into the light, I would feel some kind of peace. I thought maybe this would be the end of it, that I could move forward, that I could breathe again. But peace doesn't follow chaos. What comes instead is debris, fallout, consequences. I see them in the eyes of my children. They don't understand everything, not in the way adults do, but they feel it. They feel the distance, the confusion, the hurt. Their eyes, once full of trust, now hold something else, something I don't know how to fix. There's a quiet pleading in them, like they're waiting for me to explain something I can't. I don't have the answers they're looking for. I don't have any answers at all. I hear the consequences in my mother's voice. When she called me the day after the dinner, she was trembling, barely able to believe this was happening to her family. She kept asking me over and over, as if hearing it once could somehow make it easier to understand. But it didn't, and I feel the consequences in the awkward silences, in the missed calls. I no longer return, because I'm too tired to try and explain what can't be explained. The shame, the anger, the heartbreak, none of it can be fixed with words anymore. My wife still hasn't left the house. Since that night, she's been living in the guest room. I kicked her out of our bedroom, threw her things out, every last piece, and told her, "Hookers like you deserve streets, not bedrooms." I'm not proud of that. But honestly, I don't regret it either. She deserves it. I had been holding that rage in for so long, and the floodgates had finally opened. I didn't care anymore about being civilized. I didn't care about her begging. Her tears meant nothing. Now what she'd done to me, to us, to this family, it was beyond anything I could forgive, she cried. Of course, she begged me to understand, begged me to take her back. But instead of the love I should have been offering her, I kept going. I kept insulting her, tearing into her with every word. It felt good. Honestly, it felt like finally, for once, I had the upper hand, and then my eldest son heard me. I didn't mean for him to hear, but the words came out sharp and ugly before I could stop them. He froze at the door, eyes wide, and just stared at me. I saw the hurt in his eyes. I saw it in the way he recoiled, as if he'd just learned something about the world that he wasn't ready for. I'm not proud of that, not at all, but I can't bring myself to apologize. She's the one who ruined everything. She's the one who destroyed this family. And yet I'm the one left to pick up the pieces. The days since have felt like a fog. She's become like a ghost floating around the house. She drifts quietly from the kitchen to the bathroom to the guest room. She avoids me. The kids, even the dog, she doesn't speak, she doesn't try. It's like she's waiting for something to change. But nothing will. I won't let her off that easily. The kids have started asking me why she's still here, why she's not in the room with us anymore, why we don't eat dinner together. They're old enough to understand that something's wrong. They're old enough to see the distance between us, between her and me. And every time they ask, she can barely meet their gaze. She mumbles out something vague, something weak that no child half their age would believe. Mom's just tired, she'll say. Mom needs some space, and I can't even look at her when she says it, because I know what she's really doing. She's hiding from the truth, hiding from the damage she caused, hiding from the consequences of her actions. A few days ago, I overheard her crying on the phone. I don't know who she was talking to, probably a friend, but what I heard made my blood boil. Everything got out of control, she whispered, voice thick with guilt, but also with something else, self-pity. I never thought he'd go so far. She was talking about me as if I were the villain in this story, as if the betrayal wasn't on her, as if the crime wasn't her deception, her affair, her choice to shatter everything I had built. But no, in her eyes, the real crime was that I finally had the courage to confront the truth, that I didn't just sit there and let her keep lying to me. I stood there listening, and all I could feel was a fury, so hot, it burned my insides. How dare she? How dare she make herself the victim? I've been telling myself I'd never let her manipulate me again, that I'd never let her twist things around. But the longer I listened, the more that same old feeling crept back. The confusion, the doubt, the question I'd spent so long asking myself, what did I do wrong? But that's just it. I didn't do anything wrong. She did. And then there's my brother. He's vanished, gone. No calls, no apologies, no confrontation, no looking me in the eye and admitting what he did. I don't know where he is. And honestly, I don't care. But I can't ignore the fact that he's just disappeared like a coward. No explanation. No reason he doesn't even have the decency to face the mess he helped create. I found out from my father. He told me my brother came to him looking for sympathy, trying to explain himself. I kicked him out. My father said. His voice was hard, angry, told him to never step foot in this house again. After what he did, I should feel satisfaction, right? I should feel some kind of relief that my father did what I couldn't bring myself to do. But I don't, because as much as I hate him, as much as I truly want to tear him apart for what he's done, one day my youngest son asked me why his uncle didn't come around anymore. I hadn't prepared for the question, it just slipped out of his mouth casual, like it was the simplest thing in the world. Dad, where's Uncle Marcus? He doesn't visit anymore. I froze. How do you explain to a child that his own uncle, someone he looked up to, someone who used to be part of our family, part of our everyday life, is the reason why everything has crumbled? How do you make sense of that? For a kid who doesn't even understand the magnitude of betrayal, I couldn't. So I made up some ridiculous story about Marcus going on a trip, a long one, a trip I couldn't even explain without sounding suspicious. It's not like I could say, well, buddy, Uncle Marcus has abandoned us and he's the one who slept with your mom and that's why we don't see him anymore. That would have been too much for him, too much for any of them. The rest of the family. A parade of hypocrisy, everyone had something to say. But none of it felt real. None of it felt like they understood Aunt Angela. the one who always felt the need to insert herself into everyone's business, called me. The next day she said, "Maybe I should have handled things more privately." Privately, as if this were some minor disagreements, as if this wasn't the most gut-wrenching, earth-shattering thing to ever happen to me, as if my heart hadn't been ripped in half. I didn't say a word, just hung up. I won't let anyone tell me how. I should have reacted to the deepest wound of my life. I wasn't looking for their approval anyway. I wasn't looking for anyone to tell me what to do or how to feel. Then there was my wife's cousin, the one who always thought she had the answers always, the self-proclaimed voice of reason. She sent me a long-winded message full of empathy and second chances about how sometimes passion overrides reason. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. How easy it is to preach forgiveness when you're not the one standing in the wreckage. How easy it is to give advice from the outside, to talk about empathy, when you're not the one who's been lied to, betrayed, destroyed. I didn't reply. I couldn't. What was there to say? What could I say that would make her understand? That would make any of them understand? But it hasn't all been bad. There have been a few moments of clarity, moments of honesty that I didn't expect. My cousin Laura, for one. She came to me a few days after the storm. She told me. I was brave that no one else would have had the guts to do what I did. She said everyone knew something was going on between them, but no one wanted to be the first to say it out loud. And even my mother, though it was hard for her, admitted she had noticed strange behavior between the two of them. She stayed quiet, afraid of creating conflict, of making things worse. But she hugged me tight, whispered, "I'm sorry, I should have protected you. I should have known." It was one of the few sincere moments I've had lately, brief but real, like a breath of fresh air, after choking on smoke for too long. But the rest of it doesn't make any of it easier these days. My life feels like a strange blend of numbness and routine. I get up early like clockwork. I make breakfast, just for the kids. They're used to it now. They don't ask about her, don't even seem to care much. I take them to school, kiss them goodbye, and come back to a house that doesn't feel like mine anymore. I can't even sit in the living room without seeing her face, without feeling her presence haunting every corner I work from the dining room. Now I can't bring myself to go into the office, the place where she used to sit, the place where she used to write him messages, her hands moving across the screen like everything was fine, like our world hadn't been turned upside down. The silence in this house is deafening. It's not a peaceful kind of quiet. It's thick, oppressive. The tension hangs in the air like static. My kids have changed. They don't need to say anything. I see it in their eyes, in the way they move and what they don't ask. My eldest barely speaks to me anymore. It's like he's still processing everything, still trying to make sense of a reality that's too big for his age. He's grown quieter, withdrawn. I catch him looking at me sometimes, his eyes searching for something, maybe reassurance, maybe an answer I don't have, but I don't know how to fix. This for him, I can't. All I can do is be here, even though I don't know what that even means anymore. The youngest, though, he's the one who keeps asking the questions that rip through me that I can't answer. Is Mom staying in that room forever? I didn't know how to answer that. I thought about it for a second before forcing out something that felt like a half-truth. No, buddy, it's just for now. Then maybe she moves out of this house. He looked at me like he didn't believe it. How could he? I didn't believe it. Either, are you going to get a new wife? I could feel the words stick in my throat. What was I supposed to say to that? How could I possibly explain this? The mess. The wreckage. No, I'm not. Now, I said, my voice quieter than I meant it. To be, he seemed to accept that. But I could see the doubt in his eyes. He wasn't asking because he wanted a new mom. He was just looking for an answer. Any answer. Something to cling to. His uncle. Not part of the family anymore. That one hit like a punch. To the stomach, I didn't even know where to begin with. That I wanted to scream. Tell him the truth. How his uncle destroyed everything we had. How the betrayal had torn the fabric of our family apart. No, he is dead to us. He and your mom did some things that made sure that your mom and I never get back together. It felt like I was slowly dying inside with each question he asked, and each time I lied to him, I felt like I was burying a part of myself deeper into the ground. I don't know how to explain this kind of heartbreak to a child hell. I can barely explain it to myself. What words can I use when I'm drowning in the same mess? How do I explain to my kids that the person they loved most in the world, their mother, broke, their father broke our family and shattered everything they knew? They're growing up in this mess. They don't deserve any of this. I hate that this is their childhood, their memory of what family is, but I can't protect them from the truth. Not this time. I've been going to therapy, not because I believe it'll save me, but because I felt that if I didn't talk to someone, I'd end up screaming at half the world or breaking something I couldn't fix. During our first session, the therapist asked me what I hoped to achieve. With all this, I didn't know how to answer her. I sat there in silence for a long time before finally admitting the truth. I'm not sure. I just need to understand how I got here, how I didn't see it coming, how someone I shared almost 2 decades of my life with could lie to me so effortlessly. I could feel the weight of the question pressing down on me. How did I not see the cracks? How did I not hear the warning signs? How did I not see that my brother was playing me like a fool while smiling? To my face, the therapist didn't respond right away. She gave me that neutral, unreadable look that professionals always give, like she was trained not to pass judgment. Then she said something that nearly made me laugh, that people don't always betray out of malice. Sometimes they do it out of weakness. I almost scoffed, the same tired excuse dressed up as some kind of psychological insight. I've heard that all my life, the explanation for the unforgivable. Oh, they didn't mean it. It was a weakness. It was a mistake. We all make mistakes. Weakness doesn't excuse this weakness. Doesn't explain how my brother could stand by my side for all these years, look me in the eye, and then betray me in the worst way possible. Weakness doesn't explain how my wife could tear my world apart and act like nothing had changed. But I didn't say anything. I just nodded, feeling like I was being told something I already knew, something I didn't need to hear again. Some of the friends who found out have reached out with kind words. A few even expressed this quiet kind of admiration, like they wish they had the guts to do what I did. But most have kept their distance, and I get it. No one wants to get caught in the middle of a family implosion, especially when there are kids involved. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable, people don't know what to say, and the ones who do reach out to me, like my old coworker, end up just adding salt to the wound. I remember the conversation clearly. He called me, his voice low, hesitant, like he was tiptoeing around something. "Keith, I've been meaning to say something." He started, his words faltering. I heard rumors about your brother and your wife a while back, and I didn't know if I should say anything." I felt a cold rush of anger pulse through me. "You heard rumors?" I repeated, my voice flat but heavy with disbelief. "And you didn't think to tell me? You didn't think to say a word? I wanted to respect your privacy," he said, as if that was an excuse. Respect. I spat. "Spare me." I could barely keep the bitterness from my voice. "I would have respected you more if you had the guts to tell me the truth when you knew something was off." He stayed silent for a moment, probably unsure if he should try to apologize, but I was beyond caring. Everyone knew something. Everyone could feel the tension, could smell the deceit, but no one wanted to be the one to speak up. No one wanted to be the one to cause waves. So I had to be the one to light the match. I had to be the one to burn everything down, just so they could see what had been sitting in plain sight all along, what they all pretended not to notice. It's all in the past. Now the truth is out, but now I've started making moves on the practical side of things. I can't sit here drowning in all of this without doing something about it. I've started going through the finances, checking accounts, reviewing bank records, tracking every expense. It's like peeling back layers of dirt, only to uncover more filth. Underneath there are strange transfers, deposits into accounts I don't recognize, and the charges, small discrete purchases like the ones you make when you're trying not to leave a trail. Every time I dig deeper, I find more lies, more deceit, I'm starting to suspect the betrayal wasn't just emotional, that she may have taken things that weren't hers. I can't let that go. I won't not, after everything she's already done to me, if she thought she could betray me emotionally and still walk away with part of what we built together. She's more deluded than I thought. And if I find out my brother had any hand in this financial mess, well, I won't hesitate for a second to take legal action against him. Blood, or not, that word means nothing. When someone stabs you in the back and watches you bleed, like it's nothing. My parents, they're shattered too. They don't say it out loud, but I can feel it. The silence between us has grown thick, like an unspoken understanding of the mess their sons have created. I saw my dad the other day. He came over to check on the kids. I had to force a smile, had to pretend things weren't spiraling around me, but it was hard to miss the way he barely looked me in the eye. The guilt, the shame, it all clung to him. Son, he said quietly after a long pause. I don't know what to say. I shrugged. What could I say? What was there left to say? I never thought it would come to this, he added, shaking his head. I always thought you two boys were, I don't know, stronger than that. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I could feel the weight of his disappointment settling on me, but I couldn't shoulder it. Not right now. I couldn't be the man he thought I should be. I had to be something else, something that made sense in a world that had completely unraveled. Yeah, I said finally, my voice low. Me neither, but my mother. She's been different. She's been the one who's tried in her own way to make sense of it. All the other day, she pulled me into a hug, something I haven't felt in so long. I'm sorry, Keith, she whispered. I wish I could have done something to stop it in time. I didn't know how to respond. I couldn't bring myself to blame her. She'd been as blindsided as I was, but hearing her say that it was a small moment of something real, something raw, something that felt like comfort in the middle of all this chaos. It's the only moment of clarity I've had in a while, but I know it's fleeting. I've already made my choice. There's no turning back. Not now, because if I don't fight for what's right, for what I deserve, then what's left? Just the wreckage, just the empty shell of a family that once was. I'm working with a lawyer. I'm making sure this separation is clean, that she can't pull anything on me. And if my brother tries to get away with anything, if he thinks he can walk away scot-free, he's wrong. I'll make sure of it. There's no room for mercy here, not anymore. What she did to me, to my kids, to this family, there's no forgiving that. And if I have to become the executioner to restore some sense of justice, then that's exactly what I'll do. My mom, on the other hand, keeps clinging to forgiveness. She sends me voice notes filled with religious quotes, self-help advice, even poems. She says, hate will poison me, that I have to let go. You can't turn the page when the person who wrote the worst chapter of your life is still walking around your house like she owns the place. I can't heal when every decision I made for our future now feels like a noose tightening around my neck. Sometimes I wonder if I did the right thing, not in uncovering the truth that was inevitable, but in exposing it the way I did, so publicly, so decisively. But then I remember the hidden messages, filled with laughter, the secret meetings, the plans they made behind my back, while I was taking care of our kids, and every doubt vanishes. I didn't do it out of revenge. I did it because I was done swallowing the filth others left behind, because someone had to hold up a mirror and make them see what they really were. And if that shattered the family, so be it. Better a broken family than one built on deceit every day. I feel myself getting harder, less sentimental, less forgiving, colder. Don't know if that's good or bad, but I know it's necessary, because the fight isn't over, because the wound is still fresh, because while the bomb has gone off, the reckoning hasn't truly begun. This won't end with a dinner and some shouting, not when there are truths still buried. Not when I know I haven't made them pay. Not yet, but that's what comes next. 3 months later, the dust doesn't hang in the air anymore. It's settled. It hardened into a scab. A thick layer of silence, dull routine, and conversations that no longer happen because the words have dried up. And yet beneath that scab, the wound stays open. It doesn't gush blood like before, but it pulses, and every throb reminds me this story didn't end with the betrayal. It only started there. It won't be over until every single one of them carries their weight and guilt, without shortcuts, without pity, without a place to hide what happened. That night at dinner, that was just the prologue. The real battle began afterward. The quiet war. The part no one sees. It's the aftermath where you gather the shattered pieces and make a choice: rebuild or burn it all down. I chose fire first. I dove deeper into the finances, every statement, every transaction, every hidden corner. It felt like I was stalking a stranger's life. But the stranger was the woman I married. My wife, a friend of mine. Someone in forensic accounting, one of those people you never know, you need until you do, helped me dissect the numbers. He was methodical, almost clinical in his approach. We went through everything: small transfers, account, details, transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. That's when we found them: small but consistent transfers. Not big, not outrageous, but steady. A pattern that felt wrong, all going to an account under the name Mauricio Q. A ghost. No one I'd ever heard of. No one in our contacts, just a name, an enigma that showed up repeatedly. In the expense logs, my heart rate picked up, my instincts kicked in. This didn't feel right. With a bit of digging, we found the truth. Mauricio Q was a shell company registered by none other than my brother more than 2 years ago. The sickest part, he had set it up behind my back, and who appeared as co-signatory on at least 2 of those transactions. My wife, they weren't stealing millions, but they were stealing together. They were bleeding me dry behind my back while I was here, paying the mortgage, covering tuition, keeping the house running. I thought we were a team. I thought we were building a life together. They were just taking from me, bit by bit. I thought about my therapist's words, that each new revelation would feel like reliving the betrayal all over again. But this was different. This wasn't just a betrayal of the heart. This was theft. This was time. This was sweat, hours of work, nights of stress, converted into their dirty money, funneled into their sick little escapade. I felt my hands shake as I went through the files, the receipts, the logs. Every page felt heavier than the last. This was it. There was no going back. The reality of it was undeniable. So I compiled everything neatly, precisely, with legal backing. I wasn't going to throw a tantrum, wasn't going to confront her in some dramatic, emotional outburst. No, this time it was going to be surgical. It was going to be exact. I had my lawyer send her a formal request for separation. I made sure the language was firm but clean. Direct, no room for misunderstanding, along with the separation notice. I included a demand for supervised asset division and a full audit of our joint finances for the past 3 years. When she read the notice, her face said it all. It wasn't shock, it wasn't anger, it was disbelief, but not the kind I expected. It was like she couldn't fathom what was happening. She wasn't sorry, she wasn't broken. She just stared at me, silent, stunned. Finally, she spoke. "I can't believe you're being so cruel," she said. Her voice flat, like she couldn't comprehend that this was real, that I had finally turned the tables. "Cruel," I replied, my voice calm, almost detached. "Cruel is sleeping with my brother while I worked overtime to pay for our kids' school. This is justice." I could see her struggling to find the words, her mind clearly racing, trying to grasp the sudden shift in control, but she was too late. This wasn't her world anymore. This wasn't the life she'd been living in secret. This was mine now, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. As for my brother, he received a formal summons for suspected tax fraud. I don't know if he saw it coming or if it hit him like a freight train. All I know is that thanks to the data my friend helped compile, We were able to connect the dots. His shell company hadn't declared a single cent, and with those financial irregularities, there was no way the tax authorities were going to ignore it. I don't expect him to end up behind bars, though at this point I don't care about jail time. I just want him to sweat. I want him to bleed. Time and money on lawyers and court dates. Let him waste what he took trying to defend the indefensible. That's enough for now, at least for me. Meanwhile, things with my kids have started to shift. It wasn't a dramatic, tear-filled moment like I expected. It was more like a slow, quiet unraveling. My oldest son, the one who'd stayed silent through it all, keeping everything bottled up, he finally cracked. It was an ordinary night. Nothing out of the ordinary. We were watching a movie together, just the two of us. I thought it was going well. We were actually laughing at a scene when out of nowhere he hit pause on the remote. "Dad," he said, his voice steady but heavy with something I couldn't place. "I'm sick of being left in the dark." I felt my chest tighten. "What do you mean?" He looked at me, his eyes wide but full of frustration. "Everyone at school whispers about us. They know more than I do. They talk about it behind my back. And I feel like an idiot, like I'm the only one who didn't see it. I don't know what's going on, but I know it's bad. I'm not dumb." My throat felt dry. The honesty of it hit me like a slap in the face. This was the moment I knew was coming, but hearing him say it, I realized I'd never really understood. The weight carried for him for both of them. I didn't want to lie to him, not anymore. So I told him the truth, as much of it as I could. "Your mom and I were going through something serious. She betrayed me, son. And your uncle too. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's bad. But the only thing I want is to protect you and your brother. That's all I'm doing. I'm just trying to clean up this mess." He didn't say anything at first, just sat there, his eyes red from holding everything back. I braced myself for the meltdown, for the yelling, the questions that I wouldn't have answers for, but instead he just got up quietly and went to his room. As for the rest of my life, the people around me have filtered themselves. The ones who couldn't handle the truth, the ones who told me to let it go, have fallen away like dead leaves. And you know what? That's fine. I don't need anyone in my life who can't handle this. I'm not here to prove anything to anyone. This phase of my life isn't about explanations or trying to make people understand. It's about cleansing, cutting out the toxic, letting go of the people who were never really there in the first place. Even my mother, who clings to her rosaries and blind hope, eventually admitted that what they did was wrong. "Keith, what your brother did and what she did, it's wrong," she said, her voice trembling slightly. But then she added, almost as an afterthought, "But I don't want to see our other son ruined. He's still family." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like she was giving me a choice to protect my brother, to let him off the hook because he was family. I felt the blood in my veins freeze for a second. How could she still make excuses for him? I didn't even try to soften my words. "This time, that's not my burden. Mom, you can keep trying to protect him if you want, but I will put every effort to ruin his life for good. He left no stones unturned to wreck my marriage. I will make sure I do it to him. You can try all you want, but I will not." Stop. Her face crumpled slightly, but she didn't argue. She just sat there staring at me with that defeated look. Maybe she was finally realizing that I wasn't the same person I was before that. Whatever had been broken inside me, I'd rebuild it into something harder inside. I still feel like a ticking bomb. It's always there, lurking, that raw fury, the urge to scream, to let it all out. But I've learned to control the rhythm. I don't explode anymore. I don't smash things. I don't scream or throw plates across the room like I used to. That kind of chaos. It doesn't help, but that doesn't mean I'm calm. It means I calculate every step, every move, every word I say. I weigh the consequences. I know now that revenge doesn't always come in the form of chaos and shouting. Sometimes revenge is quiet. It's a signed paper, a court summons, an email sent at the perfect time when the clock ticks down, just enough to make it sting. It's the cold precision of knowing what they did to you, knowing that it won't be forgotten, and most of all, it's the choice not to forgive, not to forget. I'd spent so much of my life forgiving, brushing things off, because family is family. That's the mantra. Everyone says the thing that's supposed to hold everything together, no matter how much it cracks. But I see it now for what it is, an excuse, a shield for cowards. It's the thing people use to defend the indefensible. Not anymore. No more in my house. No more in my life. It no longer applies. They thought they had broken me, that they would leave me shattered, crying on the floor begging for answers. They thought I'd be desperate for closure, for some kind of understanding, but they didn't know what I was capable of. 6 months later, my wife, or ex-wife now, since the divorce is final, left the house for good last Tuesday. At first, she came in swinging like she still had some kind of upper hand. I sat at the kitchen table while she stood by the counter, arms folded, spitting threats through clenched teeth. "I'm going to fight for custody," she said. "You can't just erase me from their lives. I have rights, Keith." I didn't even flinch. I just looked at her and slid the file across the table toward her copies of the statements, the transfers, the shell company, connections my friend had helped compile every damning detail. And when her eyes scanned the top page, her whole posture changed. Her mouth opened, then closed. No words came. "My lawyer will be in touch," I said quietly. The next day, her lawyer called mine. I don't know what was said. Between them don't really care, to be honest, but whatever she was told, it was enough, because she didn't push after that. She didn't scream, didn't beg. She just left empty-handed. Just like she came into this marriage for her. I gave a simple option: jail or alimony and child support. I heard the front door close around noon, no slamming, no drama, just the sound of her footsteps fading down the driveway. She took one half-packed suitcase, and none of the guilt, no hugs for the kids, no explanations. She didn't look back. The only thing she left behind was a note. 3 lines. "I hope you can forgive me. One day everything got out of control. I didn't know how to handle it. When I walked into the living room, both kids were sitting there, the youngest. Benji clutched his plush fox. His bottom lip trembled. His mom leaving again?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. "Yeah, bud, she is. Is she coming back?" I crouched beside him and rested a hand on his shoulder. "No, not this time," he cried. Quiet little sobs, the kind that pull from the gut. I sat with him on the couch until he wore himself out. My eldest, Noah, didn't say a word. He just stood up from the armchair, walked past me, and shut his bedroom door behind him. He didn't come out. For 2 days, no yelling, no questions, just silence, like he was building some wall inside himself, brick by brick. I let him. I knew what he needed: time, space, the dignity to feel what he needed to feel on his own terms. We'd have the hard conversations. Later, for now, he deserved quiet. Since then, it's been about slow reconstruction. Mornings have a different feel. Now, not lighter, not exactly, but real. There's no pretending, no walking on eggshells. I get up first, pack their lunches, make breakfast. The boys come down, sleepy-eyed, and we sit in that worn-out kitchen and just exist. We're rebuilding our own rhythm, new routines, healthier silences, more honest conversations at dinner. It's the 3 of us every night. I started making their favorite meals, not to spoil them, but to remind them that something steady still exists. Spaghetti Tuesdays, pancakes on Fridays, even for dinner. Noah talks about his science project. Benji goes on tangents about dinosaurs and whatever new fact he learned. That day I listen, I really listen, and sometimes when I talk, they actually laugh. Last night Noah looked up from his plate and said, "I think I want to try for the robotics team." I smiled. "Go for it. I'll help you practice if you want." His face relaxed. "Thanks, Dad. It's not perfect. It's not some movie ending, but the masks are gone, and after everything, after months of lies, betrayal, and holding it all in, that feels like taking a deep breath again after months underwater. As for my brother, he's become a ghost. I haven't seen him in months, and neither has anyone else. Word got around that he moved out of town, fled. Really, the legal side of things is still unfolding. I don't have access to every detail, but from what my friend at the tax office has hinted, things aren't looking good for him. The fake company, they're pulling at the threads now, and everyone leads to more rot. There's talk of asset freezes, quiet interviews, a paper trail longer than he ever thought possible. I don't know if he'll end up in court or just lose everything quietly, but either way, the illusion is gone. Whatever mask he was wearing, the successful businessman, the charming son, it's dissolved. What's left is just a shadow, and the people who used to cover for him, they've vanished too. Mom called me a few weeks ago. Her voice was shaky, worn out. It wasn't like her. I told him not to come over anymore. She said, "I can't look at him, Keith. Not without seeing everything he destroyed. I gave him chances, I prayed over him, but it's like the boy I raised never came back." There was silence on the line, except for the sound of her rosary beads clicking in her hands. "I still pray for him," she said finally, but from a distance. Far away, Dad didn't call, he showed up. One afternoon, he knocked on my door with a bag of pastries and a tired smile. We sat out on the balcony, me with a coffee, him with his tea black. The way he's always liked it. He didn't say much at first, just looked out over the street, tapping his finger against the ceramic mug. Then, without looking at me, he said, "I have no room in my life for cowards." Shut. I glanced at him, but his eyes were still on the horizon. I spent my whole life thinking strength was about pushing forward, about keeping the family together no matter what. But it turns out sometimes strength is knowing when to let go of the ones who don't deserve your name. There was a weight to his words. Something final. He didn't cry. Dad doesn't cry, but in that moment, something in his face, the lines around his eyes, the set of his jaw made me feel like he had just not where I could see it. It was the only time in all these months that I saw a mix of disappointment and sadness in his eyes. A feeling heavier than any sermon. Marcus was eventually arrested for not turning up in court, and later of fraud charges. My ex-wife, who thought that she had walked away from me just empty-handed, was also dragged into the mess because Marcus had told the investigating officer that she was his accomplice. They are looking at a jail term longer than my marriage. A few weeks ago, I ran into my cousin Danielle at the grocery store. Of all places, I hadn't seen her in over a decade, not since the last time our whole family pretended to get along long enough for a barbecue. She saw me before I saw her. I was pushing the cart down the cereal aisle when I heard my name, soft but stunned like a question, and an exhale rolled into one. Keith. I turned, and there she was. Same sharp cheekbones, same wild curls, but softer now, wiser. Maybe she walked right up and wrapped her arms around me like the years had melted. No hesitation. We stood there for a second, just existing in that moment when she pulled back. Her eyes were glossy. "People still talk about that night," she said, shaking her head. It was like God. Like an explosion went off. "You changed everything." I gave a half smile. I didn't do it to be remembered. She nodded like she understood, then added, "Still, they didn't see it coming. No one thought you'd be the one to blow it all up." I looked down at the floor for a second, then said the line I'd repeated in therapy so many times it had become muscle memory. It wasn't about winning. There are no winners in a story like this. Danielle leaned against her cart, expression softening. Then what was it about? Not letting them destroy me completely. I said it was about speaking when silence would have been easier, about pulling back the curtain, even if what was underneath made everyone uncomfortable. And yeah, it was cruel, it was brutal. I looked her in the eye, but it was necessary. She let out a long breath. "They're still talking. You know, some of them don't know what to believe, others pretend they didn't see it coming." "They did," I said quietly. "They just didn't want to get involved. That's the thing. Nobody wants the truth when it makes them uncomfortable. They'd rather keep it hidden, buried under politeness and family photos." She looked like she was about to cry. "Again, I'm proud of you," she whispered. "Really?" I gave a small nod. If I hadn't done it, they'd still be laughing behind my back, still calling me naive, still making excuses for them. She put her hand on my arm. "And now," I said, "I sleep alone, but in peace." The silence between us wasn't awkward, it was full, real. "The house is quiet," I went on. But it's not tense anymore. The kids, they're healing. Slowly we're talking more, laughing more, and I'm still here. Still standing still, rebuilding piece by piece, she said, as if she'd been inside my head. I nodded day by day. I paused, then added, I don't expect apologies anymore or some divine justice. That's not the point. It's enough for me to know that they have to live with what they did. They'll have to explain themselves to their kids someday, face a family that doesn't trust them, and carry the weight. Danielle squeezed my hand gently, then let go. They thought I'd break. I said. They thought I'd sit in silence, cry behind closed doors, maybe disappear. I shook my head, but I didn't. I made them face the hell they created. She smiled through her tears. You didn't just survive, Keith. You made it count. Yeah. I said that's how my story ends, not happily, but justly. I picked up a box of cereal and dropped it into the cart, then looked back at her, because revenge wasn't the end. It was the start of what she asked. I met her eyes. My freedom, Amadot. And for anyone who ever finds themselves where I stood, I'll say this: if someone spits in your face while telling you they love you, don't wipe their mouth, break their teeth, and then keep walking. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.